other side of the Capitol. But just to lay out at the beginning why we're here. Today, the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigation is issuing a report. This report ought to shock America's conscience. Americans should be shocked to read these stories, 22 American citizens treated in a way we would not tolerate anyone in this great nation, our fellow citizens, being abused and mistreated. Americans should have a hard time recognizing our great nation in these shocking, stomach-turning stories of fellow Americans assaulted brutally by agents of the United States government. Our report documents 22 stories, and yours are among them, across 10 different states, all across the United States, containing previously unreported details and new accounts. But we know that these 22 stories are among hundreds, literally among hundreds, that your voices and faces will reflect for us today. And they are fearful about coming forward because of intimidation and threats and potential retaliation. You have braved those threats and intimidation, and we are immensely grateful to you today. Our report outlines, and we'll hear it from 5 witnesses today, stories that would be totally abhorrent to most Americans. And they follow a through line. There's a script. Americans living normal lives, citizens going about their business, taking kids to school or going to work. Immigration agents stop them, sometimes smashing into their cars. Unprompted seizures at the airport, blockades at their streets, even intruding in their homes. Citizens are then subjected to brutal physical violence. Children are treated with reckless disregard for their safety and well-being. Agents, frequently masked and unidentifiable, turn violent without provocation, crashing their government vehicles into citizens' cars and dragging them from those cars, slamming them to the ground and violently assaulting them. This kind of abuse is a pattern. This excessive force has resulted in injuries to some of you and many others that have lasting impact on them. We're talking about bleeding wounds, broken ribs, concussions, other kinds of real physical, serious injury. And it doesn't matter if you have documentation, a passport, a real ID. Most strikingly to me, aside from the physical violence, is the disregard and denial of proof of citizenship by these masked agents who have detained you and hundreds of others. No due process. Total disregard for this document, which we hold sacred in the United States Congress, and the American people hold sacred, the Constitution of the United States. No rights and no due process. Arrest first and investigate later. And then, as if they are secret police, agents kidnap citizens and disappear them, throwing them into vans to be transported elsewhere without telling people where, without giving them access to telephones so they can contact their families, taking away their phones, no access to lawyers, and no knowledge about how many days or hours they will be held. In fact, contrary to Justice Kavanaugh in the decision in which he concurred, Noem versus Vasquez Pombero, not a quick stop. Detention for days, literally. Of just 22 people we spoke to for our report, 7 citizens were held for more than 24 hours, and 2 others were held for more than 12 hours, and a number of you for days, literally, 2 days, 3 days. And by the way, the Department of Homeland Security will not tell us how many U.S. citizens have been detained. Nobody knows, apparently. They've been held without access to necessary medical care, water, even bathrooms. They've been subject to indignities and disrespect. And when they are finally released, no answers. Sometimes charges against them that are then dismissed because they have no basis in fact or law. And the effects are long-lasting. Post-traumatic stress, kidney infections, trips to the hospital, fear of falling asleep, only to have nightmares about being dragged out of their homes again. In many instances, as you have told me, federal immigration agents make up charges of assault to justify their abuses of you. And thankfully, video evidence absolutely refutes those charges. They have invented them, made them up out of whole cloth. I call on every American to ask yourselves what it means to be an American to you and to uphold basic American values. And watch these videos, each of your arrests and many others, and ask whether that's the America that you know, the America that reflects your values and American rights. There's a lot more to say here, but I want to keep my comments brief because the focus today really should be on your faces and voices. We want you to tell your stories, which are so powerful, and that you have bravely come before us to tell us. We're here seeking accountability. We probably need to change laws to really make the federal government accountable to people like yourselves whose rights have been violated. I know that we're going to be working on it here in the United States Senate, and you will be providing a powerful impetus to us in that work. And again, my thanks to you and to all of our colleagues from the House who are going to be joining us, most especially Representative Garcia, and I turn to him now.
Well, thank you, Senator. I just want to begin, thank you for hosting us and for your leadership. The work of oversight and ensuring that our agencies and the administration is working to protect all people in this country, in particular U.S. citizens, is so important. And we want to thank the Senate for its incredible partnership, not just today, but every day. So thank you, sir. I want to just begin by thanking all of you, our witnesses that are here today, United States citizens of this country, people that have given back in so many ways through your work, through your labor, your community activism, your service to our country in the military. You've all done so much, and we just want to thank you for your courage to be here. Our witnesses today have been, in some cases, abused, smeared, and mistreated by our own government. The Trump administration has told blatant lies about their conduct and their interactions, which we've heard from all of you. You are all American citizens. Mr. Retes, Ms. Velez, I know I spoke to both of you in Los Angeles. I want to thank you for your testimony in that broader field hearing about broader immigration issues. But you're both here today to bring light to what is happening to United States citizens as they interact with ICE and DHS. This is all happening because of Donald Trump, Stephen Miller, Tom Homan, Kristi Noem, and their anti-immigrant and anti-American enablers. We know this administration is spreading lies, is creating fear, and is breaking the Constitution and our rule of law every day. Our Constitution guarantees due process under the law for everyone. As members of Congress, we take an oath to uphold the Constitution, and that's why we're here today. We know when the American people hear these stories, they are also terrified. They know that what's being done by their government to other U.S. citizens, to neighbors, to members of their family, to veterans is horrific and is terrorizing communities across the country. This is also deeply personal for me. I came to the U.S. as a young kid. My family grew up without much means, but they were hardworking immigrants who gave everything they had to get back to this country who had given us so much. And I gained the great privilege of becoming a U.S. citizen in my early 20s. When I raised my hand and swore an oath to our Constitution and our country, that meant something to me. And I've always said that immigrants who are given the great privilege of becoming citizens are also some of the most patriotic people in this country. I know you all love your country. I love our country. And this is not the America that we believe in or that we fought so hard for. Every person in this country who is a U.S. citizen has rights. All of you have rights. In many cases, they've been seriously violated by officials and masked agents. Whether it's Los Angeles, Chicago, Washington, D.C., Charlotte, New Orleans, Minneapolis, and across the country, Donald Trump has used ICE, CBP, and federal agents to bring fear, violence, and chaos. They have arrested American citizens. They have devastated businesses and families. They have held innocent people in inhumane conditions and deported innocent people without due process. And they have lied and continue to lie over and over again. I want to thank again the senators that are joining us today for your incredible leadership. To our members of the House who will be coming in throughout this hearing today, I also want to thank them for participating. And I want also the Senate leadership to know that we're here as partners in this incredibly important, not just hearing, but this effort to bring justice for all of you and for all the other U.S. citizens that are being unlawfully detained. I want to remind the President that the Constitution protects everyone, regardless of the color of your skin, your background, the language you speak, what your parents look like, where they're from. It protects everyone. Now, Oversight Democrats recently launched an Oversight Immigration Enforcement Dashboard, which just went live a few weeks ago, and it's the first of its kind. And we partnered with numerous groups across the country so that we can archive every single possible action by ICE that might be either a misuse of laws, an attack on the Constitution, and certainly if it's mistreatment by federal agents. This is now a federal dashboard, and I want to thank the members of the Oversight Committee for being so supportive of this project. And finally, I just want to say that during today, we want to hear from you and your stories, the terror that you all felt, how much you believe in this country, and what we should do to respond. So I want to thank each of you for being here. I want to thank Senator Blumenthal and his whole team for hosting us today here in the Senate. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Representative Garcia. I'm going to introduce the witnesses now, and I'm going to ask Senator Durbin to introduce Dayanne Figueroa after I introduce George Rees, and then Senator Welch, thank you for being here. We'll introduce Wilmer Chavarria, and then I'll introduce the other witnesses. So first, thank you, George, for being here. It is very, very meaningful because you're not only a United States citizen, you're a veteran of the United States Army, having fought in Iraq. And as a father of 2 children, you will testify today about how you were assaulted and detained while trying to go to work in July. And you were held for 3 days under conditions that I hope you will tell us. Senator Durbin, if you would introduce Dayanne Figueroa.
Thank you very much, Senator, and I thank all my colleagues from the House and the Senate for gathering for this important meeting. This is my first time to formally meet Dayanne Figueroa, but I feel like I know you. I've seen you on television so much, and sadly for the reasons that I'll describe. Ms. Figueroa experienced one of the most egregious examples of federal immigration agents' unacceptable aggression and use of excessive force in Operation Midway Blitz in Chicago, and we all saw it on video, every single second of it. No question about what happened to you. You're an American citizen. The mother of a 5-year-old boy, you took him to school in the morning, grabbing a cup of coffee on the way to work. It sounds like the American dream, but it turned into a nightmare. You work in a law firm in Chicago, and you hope someday to go to law school yourself. Is that not correct? You'll be a great lawyer. But you didn't make it to work that morning. In a video that made national news, and I reported on the floor of the Senate, Dayanne faced masked immigration enforcement agents. You can see them driving their car into her car, smashing into her car, and then pointing their firearms at her, pulling her out of the car and violently arresting her. When she was finally released, her mother had to rush her to a nearby hospital. She was injured and bleeding from the encounter. Recently had gone through kidney surgery just a few weeks before this happened. Thank you for being here and shining a spotlight on this terrible day in your life. What should have been a lawful and targeted enforcement actions has become sweeping enforcement agency, sweeping up any person who happens to look Hispanic. I watched the videotape of your violent arrest, and I can't imagine what you experienced. Though you begged for information, the agents arrested you and refused to identify themselves and barred you from contacting your family or lawyer. I understand that your family was frantically searching, trying to find you after they heard about what happened. The only way they found you is they tracked your cell phone to an ICE facility. Was that Broadview? Broadview facility, which is notorious now. Not because law enforcement agents contacted your family or gave any help to locate you. No family should ever have to experience that kind of terror and experience. Thanks for coming forward to tell your story. I'm honored to be representing you in the Senate.
Thanks, Senator Durbin. Senator Wells.
Thank you very much. And I'm delighted to represent the school superintendent from Winooski, Vermont, has students in that school that show up that have never spoken a word of English. And I think there's like 25 different languages spoken there. So I'm just going to suggest that this man has a harder job than any of us, and he really does it well.
In my view, that's true of all teachers.
Well, I'm with you on that, and he's pretty special, and he's had a long career in education. And Mr. Garcia, this is amazing, because your story is inspiring, but I think we've got one to match it. Mr. Chavarria was born in a refugee camp in Honduras, raised in Nicaragua. He came to the U.S. on a student visa, became a legal permanent resident, and eventually a U.S. citizen in 2018 after his marriage to his husband, who is here with us today. So pretty inspirational. And when he left the country and visited family in Central America, on the return was detained, separated from his husband, and pretty aggressively questioned for 5 hours. And of course, without his consent, the personal information in his devices was examined. But, so many of the people here just show how wonderful new Americans are, wherever it is they come from. And this indiscriminate roundup of people because who knows why, it's all arbitrary, is what this hearing is about today. So we're very proud to have a Vermonter with us today, and thank you for coming.
Thanks, Senator Wells. Welcome to Andrea Velez. She is a U.S. citizen from California. She's a graduate of Cal Poly Pomona and works as a production coordinator for a shoe company in Los Angeles. She will testify today about how she was detained by the Department of Homeland Security on her way to work and held for 48 hours. Javier Ramirez is a United States citizen and father of 3 young children from California. Mr. Ramirez will testify today about how he was assaulted and detained by immigration agents for more than 96 hours and denied adequate medical care. And I want to also welcome Aaron Reichland-Melnick. He is a senior fellow at the American Immigration Council. In addition to his work as a senior fellow at the council, He has previously litigated cases to promote government accountability and address due process issues within the immigration system. He'll be able to address some of the questions about how government treatment of these 5 witnesses violated the law and represents a dramatic departure from DHS norms. I will apologize. I'm going to call on the witnesses to give their statements, beginning with Mr. Redez. I have to run to vote, but hopefully I'll be back before you finish your statements. We have a video that will play after you do your statements, and then the questioning will begin with Representative Garcia, to be followed 5-minute rounds by myself. We'll go to House members. They'll be called on by Representative Garcia. I'll call on colleagues from the Senate. We'll go back and forth. This is truly a partnership between the House and the Senate. It doesn't happen all that often. I might just add, by the way, because it may be a question on some of your minds, chances are very slight that we'll have any Republicans here today. And I regret that fact, really sincerely regret that we will have only Democrats in this hearing, because Republicans should be here to hold the administration accountable, just as we are doing. Accountability for defending American rights should not be partisan. It should be totally bipartisan. And we will be talking about people in red states as well as blue states. There should be no states where this kind of abuse occurs. So with that, let me turn to Mr. Redez for your testimony. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Oh my God. Thank you for having me. It means a lot. My name is George Redez. I'm here today not to reopen old wounds, but as a veteran, a father, and an ordinary person who still believes in the promise of this country and the values represented by our flag. I respect law enforcement. I respect the men and women who serve, but I also believe that accountability is not the enemy of respect. It is its foundation. On July 10th, 2025, I was confronted by ICE agents on my way to work. I want you to understand exactly what that looked like, not because I want sympathy, but because it exposes a crack in the law that must be fixed. I was driving to my job as a security guard at a licensed farm in Camarillo, California. Federal immigration agents were lined across the road leading to the farm. I identified myself as a U.S. citizen and a veteran, but that didn't matter. Agents smashed my window, sprayed tear gas and pepper spray into my car, dragged me out. I was choking on gas, unable to breathe, while officers shouted conflicting commands even after I complied. They pinned me down, one kneeling on my back and another kneeling on my neck, while my hands were already behind me. I was first taken to a Navy base where agents collected my DNA, and after that, I was taken to a detention center and held for 3 days without charges. No phone call, no lawyer, no medical care, even though my skin burned from the chemicals. I wasn't allowed to shower. On Friday morning, they placed me on suicide watch. Suicide watch is a yellow concrete room with a concrete bed and a thin mattress. Light stays on 24/7. You're stripped naked and put in a hospital gown. A guard watches you constantly. I remained in those conditions from Friday morning until the moment I was released. My family had no idea where I was. I was released without explanation and without a single charge. That entire experience violated the very principles I fought to defend. And here's the truth. It happened because of a gap in the law that allowed it. If these had been state or local officers, I could take them to court right now and demand answers. But because they were federal agents, they are shielded by a blanket of immunity. That's why I'm here. The point is not to look backward, but forward. What can we do together to ensure this never happens again? This is not about politics, it is about principle. It's about fixing a flaw that undermines the freedoms we claim to protect. I still believe in the flag, I still believe in the ideals that make this country worth fighting for. But belief alone is not enough. We need action, we need accountability, and we need laws that reflect the values we say we stand for. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and I hope my experiment serves as a call to strengthen, not weaken, the trust between citizens and the institutions sworn to protect all of us.
Thank you,
Yeah, that's my testimony.
No, thank you for your courage. We appreciate that. Next up will be Ms. Figueroa.
Thank you for giving me the space to speak today. My name is Dayanne Figueroa. I am a proud first-generation Mexican-American, a criminal justice major, a single mother, and a future law student. What happened to me almost exactly 2 months ago on October 10, 2025, was not law enforcement. It was violence, blatant racial profiling, and a shocking abuse of federal authority. That morning, I kissed my son goodbye and watched him walk into school, never imagining that it would be what felt like days before I felt safe again. On my regular commute into Chicago, I approached what looked like chaos. Cars stopped in the middle of the street, people running, yelling, and recording on their phones. Moments later, my life changed forever. A silver SUV with double-tinted windows suddenly swerved into my lane and struck my car. The driver's face was almost entirely concealed: hat, dark-tinted glasses, and a face mask. He made no gesture, no signal. Before I could even process what was happening, his passengers, other masked men, jumped out with guns drawn and aimed directly at me. They ripped open my door. One of them screamed in my face, demanding that I get out, yet never identifying himself. Never asked me for my ID, and never told me where I was being detained or why. They never read me my rights. Instead, I was violated. These tough guys violently dragged me out of my car, yanked me by my feet, and ripped the phone out of my hands. Beaten, bleeding, and barefoot, I was thrown into a red van. I begged them to tell me who they were and where they were taking me. No one answered. I was shoved into the edge of a third-row seat. No seatbelt, suffocating body heat, and no air conditioning. I was wedged between two terrified Latino men who did not speak English. We were all handcuffed, unsecured, helpless, and I went into a full panic attack. While I was shaking, crying, gasping for air, and banging my own head against the window, screaming for help, hoping someone from the outside could hear me, they raised their phones and began to photograph me. Two more masked men in full black tactical gear, carrying professional cameras, had been circling me from the beginning, documenting my terror. Where those images ended up, only God knows. I was not treated like a human being, and I was certainly not treated like a U.S. citizen, but I was preyed upon. They were proud to have captured me. I was first violated at the Broadview Immigration Detention Center, and eventually while in FBI custody in Lombard, Illinois. Everything moved quickly and without explanation. I was fingerprinted, photographed, and swabbed for DNA, and fully processed and identified, all while my physical condition was rapidly worsening. I repeatedly told them that I was recovering from 2 recent kidney surgeries. No one took it seriously until I began to pee blood. I begged for help, for a phone call, a lawyer, for water, bandages, anything to ease the pain. Instead, I was laughed at and thrown into a filthy jail cell. The toilet available for me was under direct surveillance. With no privacy, no dignity, and unbearable pain, I had no choice but to use it. When visible blood appeared, their soulless demeanor finally vanished. Not out of care, but because they didn't want me to die in their custody. While I was being kidnapped, my family and friends were desperately trying to find me, contacting the members of our inner circles, elected officials, civil rights organizations, and legal advocates. They did not know whether I was being killed, kidnapped, or trafficked. Hours later, I was finally allowed to access my phone again by the heroic paramedics. My cut, trembling hands could barely type, but I managed to send a message at 2:07 p.m. in an ambulance. Within seconds, my boyfriend replied with something that stunned me: a photo of the very Village of Lombard ambulance I was inside of. Their determination, love, and the refusal to stop searching are the only reasons I was not lost entirely, like the hundreds of people, including children, who have been reported missing from the ICE locator system since these domestic terrorizations began in our country. Or worse, killed. like my neighbor and father of two, Silvario Villegas Gonzalez of Franklin Park, Illinois. A father of two minors, my neighbor. He died in the course of an ICE operation. What happened to me that day is not an arrest. It was an assault and a kidnapping of a US citizen. I was never arrested, I was never charged, I was never given an explanation or an apology. But the damage is done and it continues. I suffer severe bruising, nerve damage, a broken tooth, and aggravated injuries to my leg and wrists. My surgically repaired kidney became swollen and inflamed. And emotionally, I developed PTSD, panic attacks, and severe anxiety. I swear I've been kidnapped in my nightmares every single night since. Weeks later, a disturbing pattern emerged. Reports of nearly identical incidents. This time, a man with schizophrenia was kidnapped and later released in a completely different town by the same masked agents, using the same reckless tactics and the same red van they used to attack me in. It is important to say this clearly. The individuals who did this do not represent the honorable men and women who serve in our military, our local police departments, and our federal agencies, with integrity and accountability. Those people protect us.
Thank
Well,
you, Ms.
I-
Figueroa. Just, if you can just wrap up in the next sentence or two.
Yes,
on time.
sir.
Thank you so much.
Despite everything, I am here. I am standing and I am speaking because I refuse ICE to rewrite my story. I refuse to let fear silence me. This was not just an incident, it was a violation of my physical being, my rights, my dignity, and my humanity. And I will not rest until there's accountability, transparency, and change. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, we will have Mr. Chavarria, please.
Good afternoon, honorable members of the U.S. Senate and House of Representatives. My name is Wilmer Chavarria. I am the proud superintendent of schools of the Winooski School District in Vermont. I was born inside a refugee camp during the Nicaraguan Sandinista Contra War. I grew up homeless for a time and in extreme economic misery, often struggling to find food or shelter. I worked in the streets since I was 6 years old, and I became an advocate for working children's rights around the country, even before finishing elementary school. My memories of school are flashes of embarrassment for not having shoes or not having a notebook. But unless I had a fever so high that I would lose consciousness, my mother would not let me skip school. She had only been allowed to go to school until 5th grade, so she took it upon herself to ensure that her children made it all the way to high school, no matter what. The resilient spirit of my mother gave me an obsessive commitment to excellence and hard work, despite poverty and deprivation. I graduated as valedictorian at age 15 and won the highest academic merit achievement award in my region. I was granted a full scholarship to a national university in Managua and subsequently more full scholarships in schools in Canada and the US. After completing my bachelor's at a historic Quaker college in Richmond, Indiana, I was awarded the prestigious Thomas J. Watson Fellowship and earned graduate degrees from the University of New Mexico and Harvard. After a long journey, I finally became a US citizen in 2018. When I held my US passport for the first time, I felt an enormous sense of pride, and I was deeply inspired to give my new country the best of me, my talent, my work, and my dreams. I felt loved by my community, and I believed with all my heart that the American dream was me. My mother's high expectations had propelled me to unlikely places, and I had to make a difference in the land that welcomed me. But I have never stopped going to Nicaragua to visit my mother. I understand the requirements agencies place on travelers coming into the country, and I have always cooperated without hesitation in the 2 decades since my mother first said goodbye to me at age 16. This past summer, however, I was separated from my spouse for hours, taken into a detention area with several officers in plainclothes, and all my devices, along with their PINs and passwords, were demanded. I verbally asserted my rights as a US citizen and requested a lawyer or a phone call, all of which were denied. I was told that I have no constitutional rights at a port of entry, and that I should be grateful that they were even bothering to ask me nicely. As a superintendent, it is my duty to protect the information of our students and families contained in some of those devices, and I was not simply going to release this data to third parties without a warrant. To this, the officers responded with threats, including referring me to the FBI, a warning that they could make me lose my job if they wanted to, or destroy my reputation so as to damage my prospects for future employment. My devices were taken and searched out of view, and I was never given a reason for my detention. Several hours later, and after interrogations that questioned everything from my marriage to my work, I was finally released to find my spouse in the baggage claim area, still shaken from the verbal assaults he had suffered when asking for my whereabouts. Since this incident, I do not feel free to travel. I am fearful that a visit to my mother could mean extended detention or a fabricated plot to destroy my life, like they threatened to. If the goal is to make some citizens feel like they are of a second class, with only some of the rights but not others, then they have succeeded. But I choose to believe that the pendulum will swing the other way, and that our collective disgust for these abuses will catalyze into a powerful backlash against overreach. I thank you for being here to support me and my fellow Americans as we ride out a dark time in our history. Thank you.
Thank you, Wilmer. We'll turn now to Andrea Velez.
Good afternoon, and thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Andrea Velez. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. I'm an LA native. I am the proud daughter of Mexican immigrants and a graduate of Cal Poly Pomona. From my parents, I learned the values of kindness, respect, and integrity, and those lessons continue to guide me in everything I do. I bring with me an education, a strong work ethic, and a commitment to doing what is right. I am soft-spoken by nature and not one to seek conflict, but I must speak today, not just for myself, but for those who cannot share their stories. On Tuesday, June 24, my mother and sister dropped me off at my workplace in downtown LA's fashion districts. Seconds later, the street was swarmed by unmarked cars. Masked men in plain clothes began chasing and attacking people without identifying themselves as ICE. One of them ran towards me. He was large and aggressive. Terrified, I used my work bag as a shield, but he grabbed me and slammed me onto the sidewalk and accused me of interfering. I asked for his badge or warrant. He refused. He told me I didn't need to know who he was and that I should just look at his vest. He handcuffed me without checking my ID. They ignored me as I repeated it again and again that I am a U.S. citizen. They did not care. They took my belongings and placed me in an unmarked car. I was unaware that my mother and sister had witnessed everything unfolding and felt powerless to intervene. They feared that if these men could do this to me, they could just as easily do the same to them. They called 911 for help. LAPD did not protect me that day. They aided ICE instead. As helicopters hovered and sirens closed in, I trusted LAPD would protect us. I managed to escape the unmarked car and run towards the officers, pleading for help and telling them that I didn't know who these masked men were. I begged to be taken by them rather than by masked strangers, yet the officers allowed the masked men to take me and parade me. As another U.S. citizen, Luis Hipólito, was detained that day for recording. ICE pepper sprayed him, jumped him, beat him, restrained him by the neck, and still pointed a taser gun at him. Hipólito kept asking for medical assistance, but they minimized his pain as not a big deal, despite convulsing, bleeding, and struggling to breathe. While being held at a temporary holding, Hipólito thought he was not going to make it out alive. And only after he went into shock did ICE finally decide to call an ambulance. In the chaos of ICE's disorganization, I spent most of the first day handcuffed and shackled in a van, watching people arrive distraught and taken against their will, while ambulances came and went for those attacked. Requests to use a bathroom or asking for food were met with hostility and anger. Inside, I was denied the right to call my family or speak to a lawyer. ICE refused to disclose my whereabouts to my family and my colleagues. No one could locate me. They later forced me to stand in front and center, surrounded by officers with their backs turned, staged like a mugshot, DHS likes to use to brand us as criminals, stripping us of our dignity. They want to paint us as the worst of the worst, but the truth is we are human beings with no criminal record. While detained at the Metropolitan Detention Center, I was unable to access drinking water without first purchasing a cup. I was thirsty. Thankfully, a detainee lent me theirs, and later another detainee leaving that day donated a cup and a spork, allowing me to eat dinner. Officers told me I would be held for 1 night, yet it extended to 2 without explanation, and I was issued a uniform as if my stay would be longer. I remained in custody until Thursday, and it was only at my court hearing that I first learned of the charges against me. In disbelief, I read the affidavit falsely claiming I had struck an ICE agent on the face and that I belonged to an organized group that attacks him. 2 weeks later, my case was dismissed for lack of evidence. Since that day, I no longer feel safe. Though I try to detach from my trauma, our community continues to be targeted simply because of the color of our skin. We are left vulnerable, forced to fend for ourselves, and if this is how U.S. citizens are treated, imagine the cruelty inflicted on those without. I urge you to hold ICE and every agency accountable for their vile, disgusting, and inhumane treatment of our Hispanic and immigrant communities. We need action and we need justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Velez. Mr. Ramirez.
Hello, my name is Javier Ramirez. I was born in San Bernardino, California. I'm a proud American citizen who has never known the weight of a criminal record. I also am a father of 3 beautiful children. But today I stand before you not just as a father or a citizen, but as a man who has faced a harrowing experience that have changed my life. On June 12, 2025, precisely 4:32, my world was turned upside down. Agents of Border Patrol stormed onto my private property at 1537 West Olympic Boulevard in Montebello, California. Armed with high-powered assault rifles, wearing masks, and their only uniform being their bulletproof vest that shield them from accountability. I have never encountered gunmen in my life. I feared greatly and tightly as they approached me. When they spoke to me in Spanish, asking where was I going, I replied, "Voy pa fuera," meaning I'm going outside. I didn't want to do anything to do with them. This was a terrifying situation. But when I heard a chilling voice declare, "Get him, he's Mexican," I'm in an instant thrown down to the ground. Confusing, knowing not what to do, I just feel a knee going on my face and then on behind my neck. My mind raced with disbelief. What I have done, or what have I done to receive such a treatment? I am not a criminal. I am not an illegal immigrant. I plead with them. I'm a U.S. citizen. I was born here, but my words fell with deaf ears. We are not asking for that, they coldly replied. I asked repeatedly, what was I being arrested for? Only to hear the haunting response, "We don't know. We're trying to figure it out." As a diabetic, I began to feel unwell. I desperately requesting medical assistance, but my cries were met with interference. Even in handcuffs, I was thrown again to the ground. My heart heavily with the weight of injustice. I found myself questioning, what did I do to deserve this? Why is this happening to me? The nightmare continued as I was handed over to HSI, and by 8 p.m. I was read my rights. Spending 5 long days in prison cell, as a citizen of this great country, I should never have to endure such treatment. I should not have to live in fear of being targeted simply for the color of my skin or the language I speak. Today I live with constant shadow of anxiety, fearing of this could happen again, not just to me, but to my children or my loved ones. The streets of my city, once a peaceful and safe community, have become tainted by the actions of those who should protect us. instead installing terror in our community. I share my story not just for myself, but for everyone that has been unjustly treated, for those whose voice have been silenced. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ramirez. Mr. Reichlin-Melnick, we welcome your observations as well.
Ranking members Blumenthal, Garcia, and distinguished members of the committees. My name is Aaron Reichlin-Melnick, and I'm Senior Fellow at the American Immigration Council, a nonpartisan nonprofit which has long studied immigration enforcement. We envision a nation where immigrants are embraced, American communities are enriched, and justice prevails for all. There's no debate that our immigration system needs reform. The American people want a system that's marked by order, not chaos. They want a system which provides opportunities for coming into compliance for people who are otherwise law-abiding, while ensuring consistent, fair, and proportionate penalties for people who are not. But unfortunately, the Trump administration is more interested in generating a perception of order through performative cruelty than creating actual order through meaningful reforms. With over 14 million undocumented immigrants in the United States, the vast majority of whom pose no threat and make invaluable contributions to their communities, ICE has for decades focused its limited resources on those individuals it deemed public safety threats or fugitives. In recent years, over 80% of ICE arrests involved officers traveling to a local, state, or federal jail and taking custody of a person already in the hands of law enforcement. By contrast, at-large immigration enforcement arrests, where individuals are arrested at their homes, work sites, or other public locations, were significantly more rare. As a result, most Americans have no experience with large-scale immigration enforcement in their communities. But that is changing. Since taking office, this administration has supercharged the interior enforcement system, morphing it into a larger, more aggressive federal presence than ever. At its core, this shift rests on the implicit view that immigration enforcement should be the most important law enforcement priority of the federal government, leaving resources diverted away from drug smuggling, child exploitation, and even counterterrorism. Following orders from the White House to hit unreasonably high arrest targets, these at-large arrests in American communities have risen by nearly 600% since January, with the steepest increase among those who pose no public safety threat. From June through October, a shocking 62% of all people arrested by ICE at large had no criminal record whatsoever. This dramatic expansion has led to a rising number of citizens being caught up in the chaos. ProPublica found that through October, at least 40 U.S. citizens were erroneously arrested during immigration operations, and as you've already heard today, another 130 were arrested for claims of interfering with ICE. Many of those claims, of course, have been proven false in court. The expansion of arrests in American communities has come through three major shifts in policy. First, the widespread use of collateral arrests and roving patrols, where agents arrest people who were not targeted by or known to DHS. Second, the expansion of worksite raids. And third, rearrest policies targeting people appearing for court hearings and ICE check-ins. It's these first two major changes which has resulted in the rising number of U.S. citizens and permanent residents being wrongfully arrested and detained. Immigration officers are empowered to stop and question any person suspected of being a non-citizen. But of course, immigration status is not visible to the naked eye. So how can officers determine whether a person is a possible non-citizen? The obvious answer is profiling. As Border Patrol Chief Gregory Bavino said to a tall white reporter in Chicago, officers use, quote, the particular characteristics of an individual, how do they look compared to, say, you. In an increasingly diverse nation, these tactics are error-prone. And over the last year, DHS officers have aggressively and repeatedly questioned, detained, and arrested U.S. citizens and held them at times for hours or even days in situations which suggest a serious breakdown of discipline. As immigration enforcement expands, these incidents will continue. And there will be more arrests of American citizens who confront immigration officers in protest of these indiscriminate policies. When communities feel unsafe, the natural reaction is to direct blame towards the most visible cause, increased immigration enforcement and the people carrying it out. In the end, everyone, including U.S. citizens, non-citizens, and law enforcement officers themselves, are less safe. It's time for Congress to fix the outdated laws that opened the door to this overreach and to codify the norms which this administration has broken. Congress should limit the use of face masks, require officers to wear clear identification, and ensure that immigration officers cannot question based on race. Congress should also support safer public communities through broader reforms which incorporate proportionate, targeted, and humane consequences for violations of immigration law. Because without these changes, enforcement will continue to escalate and even more citizens will be swept up by an administration that has expressed neither contrition nor concern for the issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're now going to watch a video that compiles a number of your different experiences, and some may find this video disturbing. I found it deeply disturbing, just as I found your accounts as I read them and now have heard them very, very disturbing, even shocking. But I just want to warn folks that some of this is pretty graphic. So we'll now play that video.
Yo, what the? Yo, run it over. That's when I get a whole lawsuit. What? Whole lawsuit. Yeah. Hit and run. Hit and run. That's a hit and run. Hit and run. Hit and run. That's a hit and run. Hit and run. Hit and run. Look, hey, watch out with that weapon. That weapon. Yo, watch out. What's wrong with you? You hit it. You hit her. Yo. What's wrong? You hit her. You hit her. You guys hit her. You guys hit her. What's wrong with y'all? Y'all bust a whole U-turn in the middle of the street. Y'all hit her. Y'all on camera. Leave her alone. She ain't even do shit. She trying to go to work. She trying to go to work. Oh, what? Y'all some crazy. Y'all got no heart, for real. No heart. No heart. She's a female. You guys hit her. How you guys gonna arrest her? You guys hit her. Man, how y'all gonna arrest her, man? Y'all bogus as fuck. You hit her. You guys hit her. You guys hit her.
you recognized yourself in some of those videos, and they speak to, frankly, some of the charges that were brought against you that were just complete lies. That, for example, you assaulted officers or did anything to resist. I'm going to turn now to Representative Garcia for his questions, and we'll go back and forth between us then.
Thank you, Senator, and I want to thank all of our witnesses, and that, of course, and that video, of course, in of itself was very powerful. Thank you all for your testimony. You have all had horrific things done to you and by our own government, which is something that I think is so shocking and outrageous that's happened in this country. And we know that the administration continues to lie over and over again about what they're actually doing. I want to show everyone just this here really quick. I want to read this. This is actually a tweet by the Department of Homeland Security. And it says, "Stop fear-mongering. ICE does not arrest or deport U.S. citizens. If a U.S. citizen is arrested, it is because they have obstructed or assaulted law enforcement. What makes someone a target for immigration enforcement is if they are illegally in the U.S., not their skin color, race, or ethnicity. Secretary Noem has been clear. Rioters will not stop us or slow us down. ICE does not arrest or deport U.S. citizens." I just want to ask briefly each of the 5 U.S. citizens that are here, if you think, based on this, is this tweet a lie? Mr. Retes, is this tweet a lie?
100% it's a lie.
Ms. Figueroa, do you agree? Is this tweet a lie?
That's a damn lie, and they know it.
Mr. Chavarria, is this tweet a truth or a lie?
It's a lie.
Mr. Ramirez, is this tweet true or a lie?
It's a lie.
Ms. Velez? Thank you. Now, every U.S. citizen here agree that this tweet by Homeland Security is a lie. And Secretary Noem should be ashamed. She should resign. She should not be running any agency of the United States of America. Now, Mr. Ruckland-Melnick, DHS does actually racially profile American citizens, is that correct?
As Gregory Bavino stated, it's, quote, how they look.
And I want to briefly, Mr. Retes, I just want to go back to you. You and I spoke extensively back in Los Angeles. You served our country in Iraq, and you had your rights violated by our own government that you fought for and put your life on the line for in this country. That in and of itself is horrific. I want you to remind the American public at any point in your incident, you told agents that you had served in the military, is that correct?
Yes.
And so while you were sitting in the dirt, while your license plate showed that you were a veteran, you told folks that you had served, you clearly stated that you were a U.S. veteran and served this country, is that correct?
Yes.
When you were violently arrested by ICE, you asked if you could make a phone call or talk to someone for legal representation or connect with a family member after being days detained as a U.S. veteran, is that correct?
Yes.
You had no contact with your family the entire time that you were in detention by your own government that you served in Iraq, is that correct?
Yes.
You missed your daughter's birthday while you were in detention and your family had no idea where you were during the time that you were in detention, is that correct?
Yes.
I think what the American public need to understand is if this can happen to these 5 U.S. citizens that are standing in front of us and sitting here right now, it could happen to anyone. The Donald Trump government is now arresting and detaining United States citizens with no due process, no rights, no call to a lawyer, no call to family. That is the America that we live in today, and it's why we're here and what we're fighting against every single day with our partners in the Senate. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you, Representative Garcia. I'm going to ask 5 minutes of questions, and then we'll turn to members of the House who are here. It could happen to anyone in this great country, the greatest country in the history of the world. And we're here to uphold the values and rights that make it the greatest country in the history of the world. Let me ask each of you, did you make an effort to tell the agent masked, unidentified, from an unmarked car, that you were a United States citizen, and did you make an effort to present identification? Mr. Redes?
Yes, I made it very clear that I was a U.S. citizen. It was the first thing out of my mouth. They asked me if I had an ID. I told them I did. I told them that I was a citizen. I said I have license plate that could prove I'm a disabled veteran. I have a sticker on my windshield that says I'm an Iraq combat veteran. I gave them any opportunity they wanted for me to show them proof.
Ms. Figueroa?
I did have a chance to eventually let them know, but that was already after I was in FBI custody, so maybe like 4 hours into the assault.
Mr. Chavarria?
Yes, I was at an airport. They had my passport and everything else. I came through trusted travel programs, the lane that you're supposed to just go through in a few seconds. I've had them for years. I've been extensively vetted. I'm an educator and superintendent. We go through lots of background checks. The government has a lot of information on me. They knew exactly who I was.
Ms. Velez?
Yes, I told them multiple times I was a U.S. citizen. I gave them my real ID and my driver's license.
Mr. Ramirez?
Yes, they knew. I told them multiple times I have my passport. I had my passport with me, and I told them I was born in San Bernardino. They were just replying, you know what, we're not asking for that. So I was asking, what are you detained for?
Ms. Velez, after detaining you for 48 hours, despite being a United States citizen, despite showing them proof that you were a U.S. citizen, you were then charged with assault. They allege that you hit the officer in the face. Now, we saw the video. You never hit that officer. It was a total lie. And after your lawyer requested the officer's body camera footage, your lawyer requested it, the charge against you was suddenly dropped. What did the Department of Homeland Security say happened, and what did the video show?
They said that I had assaulted an officer that struck them in the face, which is incorrect because they were huge, and I'm really small.
You are
I'm 4'11".
not a big person.
Not a big person.
How tall are you?
I'm 4'11". It's really pretty tiny. Yeah. But
So you never hit that officer in the face?
no, I did not.
I want to ask each of you, as my final question, about the lasting effects on you, physically or in terms of trauma, whether you have suffered in terms of health or emotion, your fears. Ms. Velez, you mentioned that you don't feel safe.
Yeah, I don't feel safe to this day.
And Mr. Ramirez, you mentioned your diabetes. Did that have an effect on you, being kept in detention without the proper care?
Yeah, as soon as I was released, I had to go to a hospital, get medical care.
Ms. Figueroa, what effect did it have on you to be dragged from that car? We saw the video of you being manhandled and assaulted by those agents.
I feel violated. I've never felt this disgusted in my life. I'm so proud to be an American, and since that happened, I'm embarrassed.
Mr. Redes, what effects did it have on you?
I'd say the effects it had on me is that it's really just that there's really a lot of cracks in our law. It showed me that even though everything that I fought for over there, even though it says what we do for our service, I wasn't treated like anything over here. And so for me, it was just a disgrace.
Mr. Chavarria?
If you were here when I gave my testimony, you would understand how much I love my mother. And I do not want to ever stop having the ability to visit her, even if it's once a year or twice a year. And the fact that now I do not feel like I am free to visit my mother without being scared that I will be detained or disappeared at any time for any reason. I don't think that any American should be deprived from the right to visit their mother.
Thank you. We will turn now to a House member, and then we'll go to Senator Warren.
Thank you, Senator. I'd like to begin by calling on Representative Holmes Norton.
Mr. Reckland Melnick, Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh justified the legality of detaining U.S. citizens to ask about their immigration status by saying that such detentions were brief and that U.S. citizens and other legal residents would be freed quickly. Is this an accurate description of the reality on the ground?
Well, I think as we've heard today, the answer to that is obviously no. We are seeing many situations where people who should be released very quickly are very obviously not being released and are being held despite showing their citizenship.
Mr. Reckland Melnick, is it legal for DHS to detain U.S. citizens for multiple days on end and then release them on no charges?
I think we've heard a lot of situations today that don't sound legal to me. Each individual case may vary, but certainly, holding somebody for days on end without processing them, without giving them a phone call, only to release them with no charges, that doesn't sound legal to me.
I yield back.
Senator Warren.
So thank you. Thank you, Senator Blumenthal, and thank you, Representative Garcia, for holding this hearing today. This is really an important hearing and important to get this story out because all across this country, we have seen people snatched off the streets by masked men, and then they just disappear into a maze of detention centers. And meanwhile, the people who love them, the people who know them, their lawyers, don't know where they are, don't know how to find them, don't know how to offer any help. Now, many people in this country might think, okay, that sounds terrible, but I'm not an immigrant, so that can't happen to me. I don't have to worry about this. But under the Trump administration, we are seeing American citizens taken from their workplaces, taken from their cars, taken from their neighborhoods, and then held incommunicado for days. And today, we have in front of us 5 witnesses who have lived that nightmare. And I want to say thank you to all of you for being here and being willing to tell this story. So the question we're addressing today is, how does an American citizen get disappeared off American streets? And the answer is the Trump administration is just taking a sledgehammer to the law. That's how it happens. So what's gone on? Number one, ICE is prohibited from using its civil immigration enforcement authority to detain Americans. And I just want to quote the law here, must, quote, carefully and expeditiously investigate claims of citizenship and handle them with, quote, the utmost care and highest priority. That is the law in the United States today. So, Mr. Rees, you are a U.S. Army veteran. You were violently detained at your job site, even though you told agents that you were a citizen. Did any ICE agent try to verify your citizenship status?
No, not a single one. They asked me for my ID. I let them know that I had it. It was in my car, that I could prove my citizenship if that's what they needed. And that was it. They never asked me again. They never brought it up. They never cared to even make sure I was a citizen.
I have to say, that does not sound like carefully and expeditiously as the law requires here. So let's try another. Under ICE policy, detained people must be allowed to make a phone call within 24 hours. And usually it's supposed to be within 8 waking hours. That means you can alert family members where you are, you can Let a legal representative know where you are so that there's someone there to protect your rights. Let them know that you're in ICE custody, and give you an opportunity to present evidence of your citizenship. Mr. Ramirez, you were detained for 4 days, during which time, as you've described, you were denied your diabetes treatment. When were you first allowed to make your first phone call?
I never made a phone call.
Never?
No.
So the 8-hour rule, the 24-hour rule, ICE just decided not to let you make any phone calls?
No, and no any calls, no messages, no nothing.
You know, I would like to be shocked at this moment and think you are the only person to whom this happened. But ProPublica found that since Trump took office, at least 20 U.S. citizens have been detained by ICE for more than a day without having an opportunity to call loved ones, in violation of ICE's own policy. You know, so they're not following their own policies. But it shouldn't take a phone call for a U.S. citizen to be released from ICE custody. ICE's policy is to promptly process people and add them to an online detainee locator system within a matter of hours. During processing, the agency has to account for a person's nationality, and it should be obvious if they are holding a U.S. citizen. So, Mr. Reichland-Melnick, you are an expert in immigration policy. Why is that system not working?
The Trump administration has overwhelmed all of the internal processes through these politically motivated arrest targets. They are quite literally arresting people more quickly than they can process, which means people are falling through the cracks, procedures are not being followed, and the system is breaking down.
Okay, but you make that sound like it's just a mistake. Is that how you interpret this?
There are times when ICE may make mistakes. Every agency makes good faith mistakes, but the problem is when you don't have any interest in fixing those mistakes and when you let the mistakes propagate because all you care about is hitting high arrest targets and hitting your deportation quotas. And that is what we are seeing happen throughout the system in field offices around the country.
Do you think it's clear to ICE they know what's happening?
Yes, absolutely. We have heard internally. I have talked to people who worked with ICE in previous administrations who are still talking to people at the agency right now. They are aware of this, and the pressure is coming down from on high to keep things going no matter the costs and no matter how many things get broken in the interim.
Well, look, each step of the way, ICE is failing to follow its own policy, failing to follow the law, failing to verify citizenship, failing to ensure phone call access, failing to process people in a timely manner. And if we're seeing this breakdown in the system for U.S. citizens, we can only imagine what non-citizens are facing. And all for what? So that ICE can meet some arbitrary numbers and be able to tout how many people they have arrested and managed to turn their lives upside down. I just want to say to all of you, thank you to our witnesses today. Thank you again to Representative Garcia and Senator Blumenthal for holding this hearing. Everybody in America needs to hear this story because what is happening is wrong, and the only way it's going to stop is if we lift our voices and fight back. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Warren.
Thank you, Senator. Next is Representative Khanna.
Thank you, Representative Garcia. Thank you, Senator Blumenthal, for convening this. And I just want to echo Senator Warren's powerful points. That video was disgusting. You know, as a son of immigrants whose parents were naturalized in this country, to see a video of ICE agents arresting and detaining American citizens and harassing them is totally unacceptable. And I was ashamed as a member of this government. I saw, Ms. Figueroa, your emotion and the trauma you still face. And I want to say it's not just the Trump administration who bears responsibility for this. Justice Brett Kavanaugh has betrayed the American people, and he has betrayed the Constitution of the United States. And for all his fancy Yale Law degree, what he's talking about is that you can arrest people and detain people, American citizens, because of the way they look and how they talk. And I will tell you this, you 5 citizens here have more of an understanding of our Constitution than Brett Kavanaugh ever will have. He should have never been put on the court, and he should be impeached today. But I will tell you, I've never felt more angry seeing what these agents are doing to American citizens. But there need to be consequences. There need to be consequences. It is illegal for an ICE agent to currently detain an American citizen, yet they've done it. We know they've put some of you in jail for 8 hours, and nothing has happened. So I'm going to ask all of you a very simple question. I believe it is time that we have automatic dismissal for any ICE agent who detains and arrests an American citizen, and that they should be subject to criminal prosecution if they are detaining and arresting an American citizen. Mr. Redis, what would you say to that?
I would say that you're 100% right. There definitely needs to be accountability and a recourse for not just me, but for everyone sitting here today, everyone who's still currently going through this. You're 100% correct. Without no recourse, without no accountability, it's what do we have? What rights do we have?
Ms. Figueroa?
I believe a Holocaust is among us if we don't stop it, so, yeah.
Mr. Chavarria?
Our nation stands for justice for all, and anybody who breaks the laws or violates the Constitution should be held accountable, regardless of what agency they work for.
Ms. Velez?
I agree. I think there needs to be justice and accountability.
Mr. Ramirez?
I also agree.
I think it's long past time for Congress to create a remedy for violations of civil rights by federal officers.
I would just end, Ranking Member Garcia, that I believe we should look into some actual accountability for these ICE officers who are breaking the law and arresting American citizens. It's not enough just to condemn it. They need to face consequences for what's happening.
Thank you, Representative Connor. Senator Padilla.
Senator Blumenthal, Representative Garcia, and to all my colleagues here for participating, and especially to all the witnesses who are here. My heart goes out to you for what you have been through, but despite it all, you're trying to channel some of that experience and a lot of that anger, that righteous anger, towards raising awareness. The whole country needs to better understand what's really going on out there. I've had my own experience this year, and one of the things that I hope for is that these tough and trying experiences for ourselves, for our families, for everybody around us can somehow do good by raising awareness for people who weren't paying attention, for people who are paying attention but maybe not enough to care, to finally care about what's going on, because it's morally wrong in addition to being unlawful and unconstitutional. So I appreciate your willingness and your courage to be here and to share your stories. I know there's a good number of Californians on the panel, so thank you for the opportunity to be your voice here in the Senate. As I've shared with all my colleagues, it started in California, but we knew then that Los Angeles, greater Los Angeles area was just a test case for the administration. They learned some lessons there and then tried to be more aggressive and more cruel, as we've seen over the months here in Washington, D.C., and Chicago, and Portland, North Carolina, and New Orleans, and elsewhere. And it's going to continue until we hold this lawless administration accountable, because what they're doing isn't just trying to stoke fear for undocumented immigrants, but we've seen the proof. It's lawful immigrants too, and even United States citizens, including veterans. First of all, I want to acknowledge I was trying to follow your opening statements remotely. I was simultaneously in a Judiciary Subcommittee hearing, but we've read the testimony you submitted in writing. I don't want to be repetitive of the questions that some of my colleagues have already asked. They've already asked you to share more about what happened to you or how it's made you feel, how it's impacted your life. So let me actually give you all the microphone. You're already addressing questions from House members and from senators. If you had the administration up here, if you had Donald Trump, if you had the Secretary of Homeland Security, if you had other officials from the Trump administration up here, what would you tell them? And maybe we can start with Mr. Retes and go down the line.
Oh, God, what would I tell them? I would tell them, that's a good question. I would tell them, is this what they want? I would ask them if this is what they wanted, if this was their goal. Are we just accidents that just happened and you don't really care for? Was this your goal to begin with? And so I guess I would have more questions than I would say anything else.
Thank you. Ms. Figueroa?
Well, I would tell them that I refuse ICE Nazis to rewrite my story, and I refuse to let my son grow up in a country where masked federal agents can assault women in broad daylight. There has to be accountability and transparency and change.
Thank you. Mr. Chavarria?
I would say that we've seen this before. We see it right through you. We've seen leaders dehumanize entire communities, entire races, entire peoples, and we know why you dehumanize us. And I will say, we will come out of this and we will come out of it stronger, and the losers will be the people who are doing the dehumanizing. And I will say, shame on you, because injustice is a circle, and it will reach your children, it will reach your families, it will reach your communities. When you violate the rights of the least powerful, you're sowing injustice for yourself in the future.
Ms. Velez?
I would ask them that are we great? Because I don't think we are. And stop using immigrants as your scapegoat for everything, for all the problems that are happening, because it's not us, it's not the immigrants.
Mr. Ramirez?
I would tell them that if they should be ashamed of themselves. If I don't want to raise my kids, in America where I have to be careful, just by being their skin color, they should be ashamed. And is this the making America great again?
Mr. Melnick, I know you come to this conversation from a different perspective, given your role and expertise. Let me ask you a different question. This will be my final. The argument from the administration is that they're going after the worst of the worst. We see in reality that that's far from the case. The fear and intimidation they've stoked in so many communities across the country is clear in my mind. Has this mass deportation agenda made any community or a country safer?
There's no evidence that this is making us more safe. In fact, it's the other way around. I've testified in front of Congress on this issue before. By diverting resources away from child exploitation, by turning ICE Homeland Security investigations into just one other arm of ICE's enforcement and removal operations, they are making us less safe. They are taking counterterrorism operatives and telling them to go out on the street and arrest migrants. They're taking people whose job it is to investigate pedophiles preying on children and telling those officers to go round up dishwashers instead. And that doesn't make us safer.
Thank you all again very much.
Thank you, Senator Padilla.
Thank you. Next up is Representative Crockett.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ranking Member, and to Senator Blumenthal. I have my prepared remarks, and as I sit here, it is so emotional for me. I just want to say, number one, I am sorry on behalf of the United States government, because regardless of who they claim to be, I am telling you that the best of us is present here. And we represent the United States as well. So I want you to take this heartfelt apology, something that I'm sure that they have not ushered a word to you about. And I also want to acknowledge how heroic you are. We are living in some of the scariest times that this country has ever seen, yet you have not backed down. I have seen your faces more than once. You refuse to go silently and into the dark. You are the light that they are afraid of. And I am so grateful for you being so heroic at such a scary time. When the history books are written, they will know your stories because you decided to be brave in the face of those cowards. So Representative Khanna brought up consequences. And I'm the type of person that is constantly looking for how do we come up with solutions. I became a lawmaker because as a lawyer, I just didn't feel like it was good enough to stand in the courtroom and just argue each case at a time. I wanted to change the laws. And right now, it doesn't seem like we have courage as it relates to the elected officials to do what's right, because this honestly is not right or left. This is right versus wrong. I don't know how any party can say that they are the Christian this or that, and then see this treatment of human beings. I really don't care your status. I get that everyone here today is a United States citizen, but honestly, I have said over and over and over that as a Black woman, all I can think about is the slave patrols. And the reason I bring it up is because history matters. You said it best. You specifically talked about these injustices and how this is circular. That is the truth. But what I'm saying is that if you believe in humanity, if you believe that we live in the land of opportunity and the land of free, then why should it matter that you're just scared about what may be coming for you? You should just be about doing what is right. And that is why I'm so mad. So I want to talk about some things that I want y'all to do, because I know organizations are standing with you. They're supporting you. We know we've got great lawyers. Some of the things that I've been thinking about is this particular president, if you've not noticed, he has somehow managed to let seemingly every terrible criminal he could find go free so long as they are his friends or whatever it is. So I fully anticipate that going forward, he is going to say, everyone that is ICE, you are absolutely going to be protected from any prosecution once we lose, because we're going to lose because these policies are not right. I think it's going to be very important that, number one, you make sure you keep up with any and all evidence that you have of what took place. It's most likely going to be those local prosecutors that are going to have to go after these people. We have to make sure that they are held accountable, because there is no reason for us to have those images and you to have these experiences and you to experience this trauma. And then everybody say, well, we tried our best and our best just wasn't good enough. No. We have got to think outside the box. We have got to be aggressive, and we have to stand up for what is right. I don't care what your color is. I don't care what country you came from. We are a country of immigrants. It is time for us to unite and stop allowing people to divide us. So again, I just wanted to say thank you. I've had a chance to meet some of you before, and with that, I will yield back.
Thank you very much. Senator Wells.
Congresswoman Crockett, I think, speaks for all of us. We thank you. It's extraordinary that you're here and how aspirational and positive you are. You know, we've got a situation where there has gone from an issue at the border to an issue with criminals to a dragnet for everybody. And I want to just go back. Wilmer, it's so good to have you here, and I appreciated your statement. I came in on the end. But did we just have a second grader in your school picked up and is now isolated? I want you to tell folks about that, because this just is another example of the indiscriminate rampage that ICE is on under Kristi Noem.
Yes, a second grader in our school district is in a nice detention facility in Texas right now. We're doing everything we can to provide lawyers and to get them out of there so that he can be back in the classroom where he belongs.
And he was picked up at school?
No, he was not.
Okay. Well, appreciate you doing all you can. The theme in all you know, everything you've said is pretty horrifying, and I saw how hard it was for you to recall the experience that you went through, so thank you. And you know, you were told that you don't have rights when it's ICE that's picking you up, right? Does that mean, Mr. Chairman, that ICE doesn't have some responsibility to act in a professional and humane way when it is, and I think I know the answer to that question, but you can comment.
That is what we know is a rhetorical question.
That's
And
right.
people do have rights, and rights without remedies are empty and meaningless. And that's why, to take Mr. Retta's point, we need to make sure that there are enforceable rights, and your voice and face will give us the impetus to try to reform the law. Thank you for raising that point, Senator.
No,
Wells.
and it's important because, I think the American people don't understand or don't see what you've experienced. And that's why it's so important that you're here, because people don't want that to happen. And if it happens to somebody they know, if it happens in their neighborhood and it's visible, I think the American people are pretty good people. And each of you has had such an honorable life and has gone through such a horrible experience, and that feeling of the power of the state taking you away and you being invisible and having no idea whether you're going to get out, and in the physical jeopardy that you were in, Ms. Figueroa, it's amazing to me that you're here. So telling your story so that the American people can see that what we're not talking about is an open border. What we're not talking about is criminals who all of us want to be protected from. We're talking about hardworking people who have families, who have careers, who have aspirations, and who deeply, deeply believe in the American dream. So I want to end. I don't really have more questions because you were so eloquent in your presentations, but I do also want to thank you for coming here and sharing your story, not just because you want to tell it to us, but it's really important the American people hear it. And both Senator Blumenthal and Congressman Garcia, thank you so much for calling this hearing.
Thank you, Senator Wells.
Thank you, Senator. Next up, I'd like to have Representative Stansbury.
Thank you. Thank you, ranking members. And I want to also echo what other people have said. Thank you so much for coming in today to tell your stories. I'm Melanie Stansbury. I represent New Mexico's 1st Congressional District in Albuquerque in central New Mexico. And I want to just start out by saying a true historical fact, which is the border crossed us. And New Mexico is a place where people have lived for many thousands of years. It is an incredibly diverse place. It is full of indigenous and brown and black and immigrant communities of all backgrounds. And it is a place where many, many immigrants continue to be a vital part of the cultural heritage of who we are as people in our state. And I cannot even fathom what you all are going through, but I have friends, I have members of the community that I live in, I have family members with close friends who have experienced similar traumas. And what I want to say on the record here in the Senate today is that this is not the America that I believed in. This is not the America that I took the oath to serve. This is not the America that our Constitution lays out, and this is not the America that the American people voted for. This is unconstitutional, it is unlawful, and it is immoral. No U.S. citizen, no human should be subjected to what you all have been subjected to. No person in our community should be afraid to leave their house. I know grandparents who've lived here almost their entire lives who are afraid to go grocery shopping right now. Little kids who are afraid to go to school because they don't know if their parents are going to pick them up at the end of the day. This is not okay. This is not okay. And while we are in the minority here in the Senate and in the House as Democrats, and we know that our colleagues across the aisle are not only not stopping this, but enabling it and participating in the rhetoric that is arming the administration to continue to make these violations of due process and of your rights and the American people's rights, I just want to say once again on the record, as I often do, we're going to hold them accountable. And whether it happens today, tomorrow, next year, when we win back the House, when we win back the Senate, and when we win back the presidency, we will hold these folks accountable. I have a lot of things I want to say. It's hard to talk about this subject without getting emotional. There's a lot of people from my community that have been illegally detained, including one individual who's an American citizen of Mexican heritage who was detained in April in Arizona on a trip to visit family, who was held in a private detention center for 9 days without access to an attorney. That is un-American. It is unacceptable. It is illegal. It took days, not only for his family to locate him, but for a US congressperson to locate him. We have detention centers that will not even respond to inquiries of sitting members of Congress and the Senate, and whose agents have assaulted at least one US House of Representative and who have denied access to multiple representatives across the United States. And that is also unlawful. So we want to be clear to the administration that we are not going to stand for this. And at the end of the day, they know that what they are doing is unlawful. That is why they are trying to take it to a stacked Supreme Court that ultimately they believe will uphold their point of view. But we cannot just stand by and allow them to do this. So I just got off a plane. I'm barely holding it together here. But I wanted to come here and to speak on the record because I wanted all of you to know that there is an entire army of Democratic House members and senators who are standing behind you, that are fighting for you, and will hold this administration accountable. So thank you for being here, and I yield back.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Next up, we have Representative Subramaniam.
Thank you, Ranking Member Garcia, and thank you, Senator Blumenthal, for your leadership on this issue. I hate that we even have to be here in the first place. I hate that this isn't an official hearing, that we have to have this sort of shadow hearing to be able to talk about these issues openly in this body. But here we are. And again, to reiterate, this president, this administration said they were only going to go after the worst of the worst undocumented criminals. And yet here we are today. And here we are in our society and seeing the videos and seeing what's happening. And that was a lie to a lot of people. And I have a constituent who voted for the president, who thought that this was the case. And he himself, a US citizen, ended up being detained. And he lives in Manassas. And one of the things that was striking to me was that, I mean, sometimes my constituents can say it better than I can. He was pulled over. He said, they didn't ask me for ID. I was telling the officer that I was a citizen and that I can give him my ID. But he just said, keep my hands up, don't move. And after that, he told me to get out of the car and put handcuffs on me. And then when I told him I was an American citizen, he looked at his partner and said, smiling, can you believe this guy? Do you believe him? Come on. And basically, he felt like he was being followed and targeted just for being Latino. That was essentially how it made him feel. And it wasn't until he was able to track down his driver's license and give it to them that he was released. And what he said after that was, because I voted for Trump last election, but because I thought they were going to go after just the criminals, not every Hispanic-looking people, which is what seems to be happening these days. So now he's questioning what happened, what the president said. And I think in the end, if you're someone who believes in civil liberties, if you believe in the rights of every single American, if you believe in the rights in every single person, every single human, you will speak out and will not be silent when these things are happening. But I see too many people who agree with us here, on especially the other side of the aisle, who are silent because they're afraid. They're afraid of the president. They're afraid of retribution. They're afraid for their primary elections. But just know that they're on the wrong side of history when they let things happen. There's another woman in my district whose fiance came over. He properly applied for a green card. He was here legally, and the USCIS made a mistake on his application. And as soon as they made that mistake, I snapped him up. And he was detained in another state, in Texas, many, many miles away from his fiance with no representation at first. He was eventually able to get representation, and I worked with that lawyer. And it took 30 days for my office and him to get him out of detention in Texas. He was here legally. And so I can tell you many more stories about that happening, but I'll just say that this is chaos, and this is not what people want in our country on both sides of the aisle, and this is not our values as a country. So if we continue to let this happen, we're going to be on the wrong side of history as a country, and we're going to look back in shame. And we're already seeing what's going on, and people are already ashamed of what's going on. And so now we need both sides of the aisle to speak up. And if not, then we're going to have more elections like we had in my state of Virginia a month ago. But in any case, I want to thank you all for being here today. I want to thank my colleagues here for speaking up, and we're going to continue to fight this. I yield back.
Thank you, Congressman. Next up, we have Representative Ansari.
Thank you so much to Senator Blumenthal, Ranking Member Garcia, and most importantly to our brave and courageous witnesses for being here today. Like my colleagues, I am so deeply moved by your courageousness. What you have been through is absolutely unacceptable and truly indicative and an example of what I would imagine would happen only in our worst nightmares, and never did I think this would be possible in the United States of America. The Trump regime is unquestionably engaged in a nationwide unconstitutional campaign to use an unaccountable police force with unlimited funds to target, harass, assault, and torture people, including American citizens. We are facing, as you know better than anyone, a situation of complete lawlessness and violations of due process, human rights, and constitutional protections only seen in tyrannical states and strongman regimes in other parts of the world. I know this firsthand. I'm also the proud daughter of immigrants myself. My parents fled the Islamic Republic of Iran and came to the United States seeking freedom and opportunity and democracy. And my dad is truly at 70, almost 71 years old, and with a very thick accent, the most patriotic American I've ever met. Like, he is truly, every time he talks about this country, even in these darkest moments, just loves this country and loves what it stands for and its promise. And for me, that has been very difficult to reckon with in this moment, when we have a Trump regime that is so deeply racist, that is going after every immigrant community. Nobody is immune to this, quite frankly, unless you are a white South African, the only group of people that is welcome to this country under our refugee policy now. And we are seeing, devastating and racist treatment of our Somali American community now, of our Afghan community, of course, the Latino community. But again, nobody has been immune to this. I've been to the Eloy Detention Center in Arizona multiple times. I've talked to dozens of women there about the horrific conditions, about the abuse and misconduct and the torture that they have experienced. And it is just, I just want to echo what my colleagues have said in terms of accountability, because we cannot allow the authoritarianism and the corruption that is occurring with the Trump regime to go without them being held accountable. So I was grateful to hear your testimony today, but I wanted, for those who may have missed it, if you each could say one takeaway for the public that you would want them to take away, especially for those who may be shutting their eyes and still skeptical about what ICE is doing in this country. What would you want them to hear about what you experienced? And we'll start with you, sir.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
What is one takeaway for the American public that you would want them to have from your experience?
Something I would want the public to take away is that your voice matters. All of our voices matter. All of us up here, your voice, my voice, everyone, every single person, our voice matters. And so that's what I want them to take away. Sharing that story, sending it, sharing all these stories, it matters. Our voices really do matter. I mean, it's brought us all here. It's brought us to this point. And like everyone has said, it's our voices, our stories that make changes. And so that's what I want everyone to know, is our voices matter.
Thank you. Ms. Figueroa?
I think it's important to recognize that there have been people that have been killed in the midst of these ICE operations, and we're alive. We are terrified, but we have a voice and we're going to use it. And man, this is very hard to do, but we're here and we're alive, so we have an opportunity to fight.
Thank you.
I was a school principal in Española, New Mexico for a while. I love my kids dearly, and I miss them very much. And I am a proud superintendent of a school district in the state of Vermont. And I love my kids equally. They're the same everywhere. No matter their color, their family history, their family story. And my new district, Winooski, has a large Somali population, and we apparently did such a terrible thing to many people in this country, which was to show solidarity and raise the Somali flag next to the US flag last Friday. And over the past 24 hours, we've been attacked relentlessly, hatefully, violently, to the point of having to shut down our website and disconnect our phone lines from preventing violent threats from everywhere in the country. So what I want the public to take away is that my kids in New Mexico and my wonderful kids in Vermont are scared. They do not feel safe. And they have nowhere else to go. And shame on us, for creating those conditions.
Thank you, Ms. Velez.
That this is happening to U.S. citizens, and I'm pretty sure there's more coming. And this also is not just affecting U.S. citizens, but immigrants. And people need to take action and justice.
Thank you.
That this is the new America, and if we silence, it will only get worsen more.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Representative Simon.
Am I audible? Thank you all for being here. My name is Latifa Simon, and I represent Oakland, California, and California's 12th District. We're all so humbled. I think folks have said just how humbled we are to hear these stories. And your stories, they shock us. They also lift up the betrayal, the deep and profound betrayal that you and thousands others have experienced in just the last 10 months. But from even just walking over here and listening to your testimony, what you remind us of with your courage is while this is in fact crisis, in many ways, each one of your stories, you tell us that this is in fact reoccurrence. In this country, there are thousands, like I said before, of folks who have experienced what you have experienced. And there are millions who accompany your choir, who can say their grandparents experienced the same fate, regardless of their documentation. So your courage here today, you bring forth literally millions of people in this room. This may be a shadow hearing, but the world is watching, and your brothers and sisters are listening, and that courage will permeate this room, and you are going to continue to task us to fight like hell with all that we have, to shine a mirror to the devil that created the conditions that you're talking about today. One such amazing, brilliant survivor of this carnage worked in my district. Her name is Ms. Kaur, a 73-year-old Sikh woman, 73, who is beloved in the Bay Area, beloved. She spent more than 3 decades living, working, and building her life here in the United States as an asylum applicant. 20 years waiting for that moment where she could raise her hand and swear that she took an oath. She was waiting for that moment and has never received that moment. That goes beyond Republican and Democrat. That speaks to a failed system that many of us know all too well. In 2005, a judge issued a removal order on Ms. Kaur, but in the absence of proper documentation from India, the US government never acted on the order. And for 20 years, 2 decades, our government recognized Ms. Kaur that she was not a threat, and they chose not to remove her. And since then, she has paid her taxes worked every single day, had no criminal record, and built herself and her life and her love of country. She was a seamstress who literally worked days after days, months after month, years after years, till her hands quaked. And every 6 months, without fail, she reported to ICE in San Francisco, to the federal building, to renew her work authorization. She did everything that our system asked her to do. But during her most recent check-in, and remember, this woman is in her 70s, in September, without warning, ICE, the officers handcuffed her, shackled her, chained her legs, placed her in detention, and immediately flew her back to detention. Immediately. She didn't get to say goodbye to her family, her grandchildren, her friends. The administration claims that they only want to deport criminals, yet Ms. Kaur, a grandmother with no criminal record who followed every damn rule and requirement, was swept up to satisfy the president's cruel and arbitrary deportation quota. You bring Ms. Kaur and all of those who have sacrificed, unfortunately, all that they have, and yet were betrayed. I'm so thankful. And I had a question, but your testimony, you've answered so many of the questions, but I think in my 23 seconds, all I have is to say thank you. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for living exactly what is written on the base of the Statue of Liberty. That is the truth. That is the truth. And this too is our America. Continue to hold not only the Republican Party and the administration accountable, hold Democrats to the fire. Together we owe you justice. And I'll yield back.
Thank you. And we have Representative Tlaib, who will be our final House member. Thank you, Representative.
Thank you so much for being here. You know, I come from the most beautiful, blackest city in the country, the city of Detroit. And I'm an immigration attorney by trade. And so, Andrea, thank you for bringing the residents that are not U.S. citizens into this space and talk about the fact that you know that if this is happening to you, what you know that it's happening to other folks, and it's probably even much more underreported. I want to talk about what folks are calling the Kavanaugh stops. Do you know why they call it the Kavanaugh stops? I see the smiling superintendent there. I want you to know that organizations tried to fight against what happened to you all and many of my immigrant neighbors, because we knew that many of the ICE rogue agents, and this has been going on since 2010 in my neighborhood. This is not new. You're just now seeing it much more imploded, much more enabled, and much more violent. But in September 2025, emergency ruling, the Supreme Court paused a lower court's ruling. They did the right thing. They said, should we bar federal agents from stopping people suspected of being language, employment, and specific industries? And Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh said, justified and said, nah, we should be able to let them do that because it's a typically brief, quote, typically brief, and that the U.S. citizens and other legal residents are promptly, this is quote from the, promptly go free. They say that's what, this is the reasoning why they allowed and legalized what I'm gonna call racial profiling. Do you think you were stopped because you're Latino looking?
If I'm being honest, that's more of a question for the agents that arrested me that day.
No, I'm not. I know, it's true veteran.
I'm not one to put one words in someone's mouth.
Do you think the color of your skin is the reason they targeted you?
Yes, 100% the color of my skin was the reason I was assaulted that day.
Mr. Wilmer, you came in from Nicaragua, they see you. Is the color of your skin the reason you think you were detained?
I don't know, but my husband was the only one among dozens of people in the first room that was white.
Oh, he wasn't detained?
He was not.
How about you, Andrea?
Yes, completely agree.
Yeah. How about Javier?
Yes, and like I stated, literally the CBP officers yelled at me saying, get him, he's Mexican.
Yeah. So you didn't, it wasn't typical, it wasn't brief. You didn't get let go right away. And Javier, when you talked about having your passport, I think this is why my mom of 50 years in the United States is carrying her passport right now. And do you know what? It doesn't matter. I want the American people to know it doesn't matter. You can carry all kinds of your passports, your ID, they don't care. And what my immigrant neighbors have been telling Democrats and Republicans since the inception of ICE is that they've been violating our rights. I know over and over again, how many times over and over again I've been hearing people with legal permanent resident green card jogging around a park getting stopped and asked. This is again before this current administration. And I say this because I want my Democratic colleagues to remember this moment when the funding comes up again to implode this kind of funding into an agency that has this many complaints against citizens and non-US citizens. You know, when I read the 19-year-old US citizen was detained for 10 days, I was completely shocked. But then I see that we continued what? Do you know how much they allocated for this? $170 billion for this violent campaign, funded with our money, while people are still hungry in our country and unhoused in our country. But they want to spend, poof, they come up with the money of $170 billion to racially profile my immigrant neighbors. Yet we can't find the money for clean drinking water. And all this, what? We gave them a check to shred our constitutional rights. Because we know the rights of your rights, but also the rights of literally undocumented immigrants are our rights too. When they shred their rights, it's all of our rights. And again, thank you so much. And I know you've been thanked a lot, but there are a lot of people still scared. You all coming forward makes them feel heard and seen in this body that wasn't built for people that look like us. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much to our House colleagues for being here, to all of my Senate colleagues who have attended as well, and again, most especially to our witnesses, and to everyone who is watching. There are thousands of people who have tuned in. We have live streamed this event, and ironically, many multiples of the number who attend or watch our regular hearings, many more have watched this spotlight hearing today. So your face and voice has resonated throughout our great country. And Americans should not recognize the country that you have depicted. It's not America. And my feeling is that it's not the Republican Party either. It may be the Trump administration, but the Republican Party I knew, the John McCain Republican Party, for example, would not have tolerated this kind of excess and abuse. You know, when I go home every weekend to Connecticut. And one of the things I do regularly is to go to immigration and naturalization hearings. I have no formal role, but the judges allow me to say a few words to the new citizen. And I love these ceremonies. Whenever I'm most down about the country, most despairing about our future, I go to these ceremonies, and they revive my hope about America. People from all over the world who are coming here, making the choice to be here. And I say to them, you know, you will never take your citizenship for granted. You took a test that most Americans couldn't pass, and they laugh or smile just like you are smiling because they know it's true. They will never take it for granted. And I say to them, you have been a United States citizen for 5 minutes, but you are as much an American citizen as someone who has been here for 5 decades, whose family has been here for 5 generations. We have no second-class citizens. You are equal before the law. And I will continue to say that to them, despite the abhorrent abuses that you have described, where you were treated like you were not United States citizens, like you were here illegally as criminals and dangerous. The administration says it is limiting these practices to undocumented immigrants with criminal histories. Your voice and face refutes that claim. It makes Kristi Noem to be a liar. And we're going to ask Kristi Noem to come here. We're going to ask her to be a witness. I'm under no illusions that she will come to talk to us. But part of accountability is demanding answers. And accountability should also mean changing the laws so rights have remedies, so that accountability has teeth, so that agents, but also their leaders, are held responsible legally. I just want to close by saying that when I go to those immigration and naturalization ceremonies, I also talk about my own dad, who came here in 1935. He came to escape Nazi persecution. He was 17 years old. He came alone. He knew nothing more. He knew no one. He had nothing more than his shirt on his back, and he spoke no English. This country gave him a chance to succeed. And my father passed away before I became a United States citizen, but I often think of what he would tell me at this moment, because he saw the worst that was to come in the country he left. I am not leaving America, because I know that there are people who have come to this hearing as elected representatives and citizens like yourselves and throughout America who are going to stand strong for our rights and liberties. One of my fears is that this administration wants to establish a national paramilitary police force that will detain people on a whim. Donald Trump has said the Department of Homeland Security hasn't gone far enough, his words. Some of his advisors want to revoke citizenship that has been granted to immigrants. We face a truly frightening moment in America. And that's why we are here today, to elevate awareness, to raise these issues, to make sure that people of goodwill who are committed to American values and American rights step forward as you have done, despite the apprehensions they may have and despite the injustices they have suffered. So I want to thank every one of you for being here today. And I have one last question for you. Will you commit to continue working and fighting with us? Please raise your hand if you will.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you all. This hearing is adjourned. Thank you.